Hello everyone, this is Abby and I have decided to do my presentation on conflict management. Now to start off, what is conflict? A conflict is a struggle and a clash of interests, opinion, or even principles. So conflicts can arise anywhere. They can arise at school, they can arise at the workplace, in the hospital, they could even arise in our own homes. So our sources of conflicts. We all come from different backgrounds, different cultures, so it is likely that we have different perspectives. So when we put a bunch of people that have different perspectives to work under one unit, conflict will arise eventually. So to touch up on some of the sources of conflict, we have organizational change. So let's say that you have been working for a company for a while and then all of a sudden there's some changes that maybe we don't agree with or some other co-workers don't agree with. That's going to cause conflict. Work policies and practices. Maybe a work policy has changed, maybe in regards to paid time off or uniform or anything that we just don't agree with. This could arise conflict. Adversarial management, competition for scarce resources, personality clashes, value and culture clashes. So this one is a really big one because like I said at the beginning, we all come from different backgrounds and it is likely that we just don't value the same things or we just don't see things in the same perspective, and that will cause us to clash. Ineffective communication. So a lot of the times there's people where they're more passive when they communicate, or there's people that are more aggressive. And then when you have these two people coming together and they're trying to communicate, they just won't be able to understand each other, and that's where they'll clash and there'll be that ineffective communication. They won't be able to listen to what the other person has to say, but rather they're too worried on getting their point across. Now, there can be positive and negative aspects to conflict. So after conflict, you're going to have positive consequences and negative consequences. To start off with the positive side, so conflict can lead to new ideas. You're listening to another person's point of view. Maybe they bring in something that we have never thought about before, a solution to a problem that had never crossed our minds, but looking at it through their point of view, it could lead to new ideas. It stimulates creativity. It's the same concepts. You're listening to another person's perspective. Motivates changes. So maybe something that had not been addressed before, all of a sudden because of this conflict, it is addressed and you could overcome that and talk about that conflict. Promotes organization vitality. It helps individuals and groups establish identities. So you're listening to another person's point of view, you're listening to what they have to say, so that's going to help that person feel identified and feel like you're actually listening to them. And it serves as a safety valve to indicate problems. Now, looking at it from a negative consequence, we have it diverts energy from work. So as nurses, we have busy schedules. We are working at a time frame, we want to give our meds in a certain time. And if you have a conflict that arises, that's going to take away from the time that we are actually working. It could threaten psychological well-being. Of course, nobody likes to argue, nobody likes conflict, especially if you're an emotional person and you're coming into work and you're having to argue with someone. That could affect us psychologically and emotionally. Waste resources. It creates a negative climate, breaks down group cohesion, and it can increase hostility and aggressive behavior in the workplace. So maybe now there could be some bad blood that there wasn't there before because of a specific conflict. So these people can maybe not want to work in a teamwork, maybe they don't even want to address each other, and that's going to create that hostility in the workplace. Now, I'm going to be comparing and contrasting different conflict management styles. So there's uncooperative, cooperative, and then the one in the middle, which is compromising. So to start off by the cooperative one, I'm going to start off with accommodating. So an accommodating conflict management style, it is used when you set aside your own wants and needs and focus of those of others. So you leave your own concerns behind and accommodate for those of someone else. So this can happen when maybe you were arguing with someone and then all of a sudden you're listening to the perspective and you start to realize, what, maybe they're right, and you just decide to let them go with their way. Maybe you just feel like it's something that's just not even worth arguing about. And this style can often be seen as weak because you may think, what, this person doesn't even care about putting their point across, or they're not strong enough to stand up for themselves. But that's not the case at all. A big part of conflict management is realizing when elongating the resolution process will only make things worse. And now on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, we have uncooperative or avoiding. So avoiding conflict management style, it ignores the situation altogether. Either one or both of the people involved in the conflict steer clear of it. So this can happen when they don't have maybe the time to manage the conflict, or maybe they think it's just meaningless, or they're not even sure how they feel about it yet. Maybe they just don't feel ready to, to speak about it, and they don't have their thoughts clear yet. So while pressing conflicts should be immediately addressed, others aren't worth the trouble and will eventually fizzle out, leaving no major impacts on either party involved. So some people just like to move on and just see where it leads on rather than just confronting the other person. Now, right in the middle, we have compromising. So compromising conflict management style, it tries to find a way to partially satisfy people on both sides of the argument. So it's like the balance of everything. Adjustments are made on both ends to resolve the conflict at hand. So while both parties will not be fully pleased with the end result, sometimes a compromise is your best bet. So personally, I do believe this is the best management style. You're never going to make people happy. So if you're a nurse manager and you're having some problem in the unit, no one's ever going to be fully satisfied with your decision. But if you come up with a compromise where both parties at the end, more or less they feel like you've come to a resolution to the conflict, then this is the best way to resolve that issue. So it's a win-win situation because it's, obviously, hopefully both parties are going to be happy at the end. And now onto the other side, we have collaborating. We have a collaborating style includes finding a solution that will completely appease all parties involved. So this is very, very difficult. It's best case scenario, but it's the hardest to reach. Honest communication with internal communication software or in person is crucial when using collaborative conflict management styles. All concerns need to be openly expressed for them to be addressed in the solution. So obviously this would be that both parties are completely happy at the end of the conflict resolution, but as we all know, this is very unlikely for it to happen. It can happen, but like how we said at the beginning, people are so different, they have different perspectives on how they see things, so it is unlikely for this to happen, but it can. And then lastly, we have competing. So a competing style is for the people who are maybe on the hard-headed side. So with this approach, you take a firm stance and you refuse to budge until you get what you want. You are unmoved by the perspective of others involved in the conflict. So personal beliefs, values, and needs aren't worth compromising. Stand strong when fighting something that means a lot to you. So this could be, for someone that maybe they really, really feel strongly about something and you do not want it unless that is what you will receive at the end. Now this one is a little bit difficult because again, it's important to be open-minded and listen to other people's perspective, but it's also a different type of conflict management. Now, what is problem resolution and how is it used? So conflict resolution can be defined as the informal or formal process that two or more parties use to find a peaceful solution to their dispute. So I've come up with 5 steps on how to resolve a conflict. So to start off, we have define the source of the conflict. So it's important to get as much information as possible so you find out what it was that actually caused those people to have that conflict. So as a manager, as a nurse manager, you need to give both parties a chance to share their sides of the story. It will give you a better understanding of the situation and it will demonstrate that you are being impartial. So step 2 is to look beyond the incident. So often it's not really the situation, but more of the point of view. Everybody sees things differently. And also maybe this is something that's very sensitive to the person, so it can cause anger or it can cause the person maybe to be hostile against the other person. So it's important to, look over that and kind of see where that person is coming from and see why they're acting the way that they're acting, why this topic is so important for them. Request solution. So after you listen to both parties' point of view, the next step would be to maybe ask them how can you make things better between the two of you, ask them questions, request what you think would be best in that instance. So you are the mediator, you're looking at it from an outside point of view so you can help them come out with a solution and compromise. So step 4 would be identify solutions both disputes can support. So again, this goes back to collaboration and compromising. So, you're listening for the most acceptable course of actions. You're pointing out various ideas, not only from each other's perspectives, but also that it will benefit the organization. And step 5 will, of course, be agreement. So both parties have officially agreed. They have hopefully are happy after that, and the conflict has resolved. So problem resolution versus negotiation. So negotiation is used when two people have a similar objective in mind, but both people conflict on how the objective is reached. So what does this mean? In simple terms, let's put it in a way where both people want the same thing at the end, but maybe they won't exactly have the same way of reaching it. So we could put the example of when you were negotiating trying to buy something. So let's say that you offer the person a price lower than what they're selling it for. And even though it is lower than what they're selling it for, they're still making some profit while you're still saving some money. And maybe they tell you more, they up the price a little bit and you won't be exactly happy, but at the end of the day, you want that object and that person wants to make that profit. So you come together, maybe at the end, both of you won't exactly agree with it, but you are reaching the objective is reached. And with conflict resolution, it's a way to quell these conflicts. So you're putting aside those conflicts and the objective is being met. So collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is a process in which working people, through their unions, negotiate contracts with their employers to determine their terms of employment, and this includes pay, benefits, hours, leave, job health, safety policies, ways to balance work and family, and more. So a way to start the process of collective bargaining would be you could form a negotiation team. So if a couple of you want the same thing, so let's say maybe you want more paid days, you decide a couple of coworkers come together and plan on ways on how you're going to propose this to the employer, to the organization, or the company. So you discuss and decide the rules that will govern the negotiation. So you could come up with specific rules or specific things that you will want to discuss with the employer. Then you bargain or negotiate on resolutions for issues. So how we talked about before, a negotiation, sometimes, things don't turn out exactly how you thought they will. So both parties won't exactly be happy, but you will still reach that objective. Okay, so let's say maybe the company asks for 7 paid days off, and instead of getting 7, you'll receive 6, but then you'll receive a day where you can leave earlier. So, you see what I mean? You are both getting what you want, but not exactly, you're negotiating for it. It's not going to be exactly what you had planned out. You have draft a collective agreement. So again, just coming together, agreeing on those terms. And then finally, create a settlement between the employees and where the agreement is implemented by the two parties. So before I ended my presentation, I wanted to add a little bit of humor to it. So I added this meme that says what a new nurse looks when the charge nurse assigns the third admit of the day. So this would be a perfect example of a conflict that maybe at first you were too afraid to stand up for yourself or to direct to the charge nurse, but as time goes on in the unit, you feel more comfortable and you're able to stand up for yourself and voice your opinion. So when this happens, this could obviously cause conflict because now maybe the charge nurse is delegating more to other nurses, and this could cause conflict between the unit. But it's very important to, like I mentioned, stand up for yourself, but as well as compromise and just speak your mind and not be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. So I just wanted to add that to make it a little bit humorous. So if you guys have any questions on anything that I talked about today, whether it's conflict resolution, negotiation, collective bargaining, or the different positive and negative consequences to conflict management, you can ask me, and Thank you. Happy holidays. And this is just my references where I added the 3 links that I used to create my presentation. Thank you.